Hello students, welcome back. Let's go to TS7 Human Resource Development and we go into qualitative dimensions of human resource. Well, qualitative dimensions, we talk about the quality. Now, as hospitality industry is, labor intensive, and we look at giving experiences to our customers, and these experiences come from human interactions, and it's paramount that we have quality in those training, in those human resource to do the job and the skills and the knowledge. So let's decipher this in coming through objectives. So the learning objectives that we're going to look at is onto quantitative and qualitative dimensions. Let's actually try to find a difference in both and detail further. Also, we'll look at human resource planning at micro and macro level. So this is something very important that works on a small level as a unit or maybe your section or a department or even a hotel for that matter. And the macro level could be from the international level or the state or the country level, or even you can say internationally. So let's look at it both one by one. The quantity or quantitative dimension, which talks about how many people are required, analysis of number of people required. Now, very good example to quote over here is when we plan for an Olympic game. Now, the planning for Olympic games, they start around 6, 8, even 10 years before when they get the contract. If they can get the contract 6 years before, even before the contract is given, they have to demonstrate about the human resource, how the things will be done, because that's a proposal which is given for any Olympics to the the Olympic body for the bid. Now, in saying so, we have to have the human resource that will be required to, number one, to prepare all the way till the day or the weeks the Olympic is going to take place or going to happen. But when there's Olympics happening, there's a lot of human resource which is required. And they will be required only for 4 weeks or maximum 5 weeks. Now imagine you're getting a job only for 5 weeks. Can you rely on that job? If not, how do they get the job for 5 weeks? How many number of people? So that's a quantity that we look at. Okay? The quantity of people that are required at a particular amount of time or a particular time of the year or place is the quantity planning, or it's a quantitative dimensions to be very precise. Let's look at the next one, which is qualitative dimensions. Now we'll take the same example of Olympic game. Now, in the Olympic Games, some employees will be required or some human resources required for the first 2 years. Then we add some more because first 2 years we might be doing planning and execution of those plans, formulation and whatnot. Next 2 years we do the further intensive work, and maybe 2 years prior to the Olympic Games, maybe the workforce improves or increases. But that was the quantity part. The quality part would be the actions of those people, the knowledge and the skills of those people who are working from the day one or even before the contract is finalized. So to analyze those and the figures, the quality of work, and what have they given in response, the productivity, if you get the contract, how do we justify previous experiences to have the quality, and especially on the day, we need to have the right people there, isn't it? If they can actually spoil the event if the right people are not there at the right time. So in saying so, the quality part in those human resource actually takes care of qualitative dimension. Now, in both the qualitative and quantitative, the important aspect, which is more specifically in qualitative than quantitative, is the education and training. Now, education is something they impart the skills, they impart the knowledge, to the students, to the trainees. Now, that is the most important or dominant dimension because it directly relates to the quality of resources in terms of knowledge and skills. Because if a student is undergoing a qualification, he or she is being tested on the skills and knowledge through exams, tests, demonstrations, role plays, whatnot, different testing tools maybe. And then he or she is better prepared to work into that organization or into the, let's say, Olympic Games. And it really fulfills both the individual and social ends. Why individual? Because individually, when the student or the worker is actually studying, getting education and training at the individual level, they gain skills, they're more confident, they can do job better, and they can have good earning. On the social end, they coexist with others, they learn to socialize, they learn to understand, know each other, they learn to work better in the situations, they know the job properly and they do job well. And when they do the job well, it really impacts onto the success of that particular event. And when there's a success, it's success for society. And also, it has vocational, which is towards a skill, towards the profession they are, and the cultural significance, because obviously then we have local people working in the local place and they have more insights to the cultural part of it. So hence, education and training is quite imperative in enhancing the quality and maintaining the quality of the workforce. Look at the economic achievement. Now, I studied in India. I got the qualification from Mumbai, and then I moved around the world. My same qualification was taking me around the world. I could work anywhere. And economic part, I really got a lot of freedom, and I could earn in dollars. And in societal part, I came back. Whatever skills and knowledge I gained from outside the world, I got it back home with my friends, with the relations, with my peers, with my colleagues. So what's happening? So education and training, they are actually means of societal education, improving overall standards, knowledge of the society, and that brings a positive environment within society through training and education. And what happens? The technological change. I still remember, I will give you an example for technological change in education and training. When I was studying in my hospitality, I did have a subject on computers. But when I got a job, I was asked to undergo a training in Microsoft Word and Excel. And I'm talking about in the year 1999, 2000. I think around 2000. Now, in the year 2000, I actually learned new technology and used the technology when I used to make my inventories, when I used to do some mathematical calculations for the wages and whatnot. And what happened? From there, I moved on. I did extra courses, moved on. And that really enhanced the technological progress because I was wasting less time doing physical manual labor, right? So education and training, again, really comes to an important factor in improving and enhancing quality, which is no doubt. Now, this education again can be classified as formal and informal education. We also call another part which is called applied learning. We will come to that. Or we also called lifelong learning. I'll come to that. Now, the formal education is education and training which is given through schools, colleges, universities, where there's a structure, there's a course material, there's exams, all those structured learning. That's fine. That's one way. But that does not mean if you do not have the school, college learning, you can't learn, especially in hospitality and tourism sector. In the year 2015-16, my bad. I was working for Queensland government in Australia, one of the states in Australia. I was working over there where I was assessing the skills of people who did not have a formal education. I was assessing the skills through recognition of prior learning called RPL. What was I doing? I was looking at what are the skills and knowledge they have. So I had a structure of a questionnaire and a discussion and an interview and a trade test and a written part of it to actually assess where those people are who have been working in the job. They may be working in the father's restaurant. They never went to school. They learned the skills. We also call them master chefs. We used to call them master chefs. These chefs were the chefs who did not really learn the trades from the education training institution. It was generational. In Delhi, we have Karachi Halwa Wala. This Karachi Halwa Wala is actually my batchmate. He has a legacy from his parents and grandparents. He also did the hotel management with me. Now he has his own institution he's running here in Delhi. So informal education, I cannot say, the informal education is not education. It is another education. But they have specific practical knowledge on that skill. But in a formal education, they were more varied and diversified as per the structure. But here, this structure would be more so towards what job role they do in the particular organization or the business that they run. And I was telling you another one, which is called lifelong learning. So lifelong learning is more so a learning which is done when you learn from the society. Let's say you went to a temple and you volunteered over there. You learned few skills over there. You went to a church, you went to a society, and you learned few skills over there. Or, in your vicinity area, you live in a tourism destination, and you learn few things from there in the life. You pick it up. These are life learning skills too. Now, that's again education, isn't it? Another very important aspect and factor that comes is health and nutrition. Now, the health and nutrition, because we are, labor intensive, because we know that we are here as a service industry, human intensive, we have to make sure that humans who are working are healthy. They have the right nutrition. Now, these are very, very important indicators of quality of human resource. Now, why are they so important? They're so important because they actually express how you have educated your workforce. Are they having enough work-life balance? Are they having enough food to eat? Are they healthy? So having these things in your own backyard really supports you while you are planning your manpower, while you are working with them. Now, this will give you a productive human resource. That means you will not get sick days. You will not get people who are injured. You will not get people who are not interested, or people who are, maybe malnourished or whatnot. So these all things, that means health and nutrition, proper caring, and a systematic structure helps us as a workforce to really represent ourselves in a very nice and productive way, to allow us to take care of our customers and to improve our health and quality of life. When you're happy, when your quality of life is good, obviously it reflects onto your work. It reflects onto your workplace environment. And that's what is health and nutrition requires. Now, in the health status, there are 3 determinants. Number 1, can people buy enough food, enough requirements? What is the purchasing power of people into your workforce? Because if they're quite poor or if not been paid enough, obviously they cannot maintain their health. And what about public sanitation? Where they're living? How are the conditions? What about the climate? What about the availability of medication facilities? Give you an example. I used to study in Mumbai, and I was very, Taj Mahal Hotel was one of the destinations because we used to go there very often. And we used to see on the backside of Taj where you used to have, one more building next door where you used to have accommodation. Now, if you look at the accommodation for the staff, let it be a hotel, let it be a tourism organization, we need to make sure that do we have proper sanitation there? Because that's an important part of health and hygiene. How about the climate around? And if someone is sick, how do we take care of that? Now, along with this, it's very imperative for people or the staff to understand the quality, the understanding of what is hygiene and what is nutrition, what is healthy nutrition. That's something really comes from either a government awareness or awareness within your organization. Now, we look at some tools for economic growth and development because obviously health and nutrition really works. Now, education, health and nutrition, they are actually interlinked, because if you do not educate your staff, if you do not educate your employee or your students about health, good health and nutrition, obviously they're not going to practice those, or maybe they practice less. And if it is enforced, maybe things may be more, many folds better. And obviously, they actually complement each other. Well, how come? How come health, nutrition, education, they complement each other? Because to be healthy, you need to know what I need to do or what I do not need to do, what do's and don'ts are, what are the implications, what nutrition values do they give. I was talking to my nephew yesterday, and I was explaining him about the lollies and chocolates, about what is the calorific value of that, about the expiry dates. So what is it? It's an education, isn't it? That's interlinked, because now they're younger, they learn these things. Next time they look at the expiry date before they eat anything, and that keeps them healthy. Now, if you look at it in the human resource part of it, as your restaurant or as your hotel or as your tourist destination, they're actually part of the process of human resource development. Now, let's look at some tools. Now, we all know tourism has really been very magical for many nations around the world. And I gave you an example of Vietnam, which is really proving excellent, doing great job in terms of economic growth and development due to tourism. Now, it is really beneficial to host economies as it creates jobs. It creates opportunities. It brings in foreign investment. It improves the infrastructure. So the qualitative dimensions of human resource development, they actually come to a point that it's very imperative to have quality education and training. For local population, when we talk about it, it could be the house staff, it could be awareness in the population, or the government actually takes the initiative to make the awareness. Another example I have to quote over here, that if you look at Rajasthan in India, Rajasthan has a lot of awareness in public about tourism and about tourists. They do respect you, do care you, and if you would go to any place in Rajasthan, you will see the way the overall public works or behaves towards the tourist. It's actually a very different experience and very positive experience. Now, we have two levels over here in this micro and macro level. In terms of micro, as the name says, smaller ones, and the macro is actually a bigger scale. Now, micro level, when you're trying to focus, or when you're trying to educate, or when you're trying to improve upon health and nutrition through education, it is realization that education planning at the micro level is quite imperative, because when they're at the school level or in the college level or any education institution level, you actually are keeping those points in mind, that how do we manage our students and impart those skills of hygiene, nutrition, and educate them on that, and make sure to practice time and again. So actually, it really impacts, and not only into the higher education, you can health and hygiene should start maybe from the primary or even kindergarten for that matter. When you talk about macro level, so that, that planning, if you understand that planning is at a bigger level. That means now it's not about a school or a college or an institution who will be taking care of health and hygiene. Like, give an example right now, where the state of the world we are, that we are in pandemic. First, we had COVID vaccination for 60 plus elderly, right? We had first for the workforce, right? The essential workers. Then we moved on to elderly. Then we moved on so on and so forth. And I think from 3rd of December, 3rd of January, we're going to have booster doses too. So that's a bigger level. The nation is thinking about how do we manage vaccination, how do we manage this COVID situation. Similarly, on the macro level, it could be a policy of a state. It could be planning which is done by the national level. And what is this planning done? They look at all the states of the country. They look at particular whole state, if that's a part in the local state, they look at the whole state. And a state may have a population or workforce of maybe 200,000 2 lakhs or 3 lakhs people. So now, how do I impart education and training and health and hygiene to those 3 lakh people? So that's exactly, we will look at the macro level, right? Now, we look at the wider scale. Now, visitors of preferences also change very fast, because we have a global village now. People are going around and they learn things. And when they learn, they come back, they ask you the same experiences, right? That means you have to have a training of hygiene. You have to have training in nutrition at maybe moving on as soon as the industry is changing, okay? Now, obviously, when you prepare a policy within your organization, you make sure that that policy resonates or is in line with the national policy in terms of human resource. Now, you may get some government support and benefits too. The process of procuring human resource. So now, before I do that, I think I need to bring forward, if I have missed, I'll bring it over here. Look at human resource. Now, human resource, we need to hire a human resource, isn't it? Or procure a human resource. So when we procured a human resource, then we need to maintain them. That means they need to be given their allocation jobs and duties so that they're not bored. And once that is done, job is done, we look at it. Now, what do we do to this human resource? Now, we actually give them either promotions, we give them rewards, isn't it? But we also give them extra skills which are changing in the market. As I was saying, that people, it's a global village now. People go to different destinations. They bring different knowledge and awareness, and they're looking for the same awareness, same skills in you, or same support activities in you. That means you have to make sure you actually support those activities, you give them extra skills to your staff. But also, you do realize there could be some issues in the staff, right? There could be a discipline issue. Then again, you have to manage those issues. So hence, it is not just finishing in the procurement process. It is training them, maintaining them, retaining them, educating them, improvising their skills, and again, making the balance of work and life, isn't it? Now, we have recruiting the manpower according to skills, or maybe providing training where they're required, and also planning in consideration of supervision and other matters, because sometimes they may have issues. They have disciplinary problems. They have issues with each other. And how do we then monitor and coordinate how many people are required, how many people are leaving, coming, going? All those things needs to be done in a systematic process of not just procuring. We also look at the achievement. That means what people are achieving, because when you do the planning, you also do, it's called yearly planning, or your professional development planning. They also do that. But we also look at business, as in tourism business, as a training culture rather than just the training, which means that we all should be open and accepting the training for learning new things in the tourism. So once you're accepting and learning, you actually learn more. So we have to develop the culture. That habit does not come. People are hesitant to leave the normal routine. How do we develop that culture which supports human resource? And obviously, there must be a commitment which is a part of training and learning and development at the part of organization. If that commitment is there, that really improves the business standards, that really improves the quality of the human resource, and that really brings the environment as a learning environment. And that gives the customers and overall need of business, that gives you clear understanding, fair enough, who their customers are, what are the skills required to fulfill their customer needs, and what are the skills we are missing or skills gap that's being developed along with your supervisor, and then that's been shared and discussed, and then it's approved to get you training. And then in doing so, what are we doing? We're improving ourselves. We're improving human resource. And when you are being given a training, that must be relevant and obviously properly targeted to the skills and the knowledge which are essential in doing particular job role. And in terms of macro level, we actually look at this planning done on a wider sector, wider resource, a wider level. I mean, again, those people who are doing this decision making, make sure these people have both skilled and unskilled people in the part of the decision making. And obviously, any other assistant or supportive industry which is there with the tourism to support us making a success. So when you're making a human resource requirement, so make sure you also look at it, that what is the policy of the government? What is a planning commission doing? What is the projection of the manpower for the nation? What is the projection of manpower for that particular society in the area? So what is going to happen is, once you have these in place, you will actually be more focused in how you're planning for your human resource training. Now, When you plan to develop human resource, you actually look for managerial skills and knowledge. You look at entrepreneurial skills and knowledge, because there might be people who really want to do something on their own. Engineering, technical, restaurants, kitchens, entertainers, guides, and any other job roles which are related to tourism and hospitality. There is actually a process that must be involved in procuring them. Now, in procuring them, in training them, in making them life balances, work and life balances, in bringing the culture, isn't it a lot more that goes to human resource development planning? So actually, if I may say that human resource planning is a first step towards human resource development, I will not be wrong. The planning and anticipation of future needs to just so that you can take the right decisions really gives excellent services in tourism and hospitality. And those planning to open institutions and courses, how many students will be there, what courses will be there, and all those things are again part of the government to promote these courses depending which area requires more number of students. And obviously, these plans must be implemented as well as just not the planning, they must be implemented, okay, for the human resource development. Now let's sum it up. The human resource planning, what does it involve? It involves planning of humans as a workforce, as a resource for working in the hospitality and tourism industry. And there are the complementary aspects are education, health, and social and economic equality. Now, education, which has been a very prominent aspect, but human resource planning could also be said as education planning, which involves both public and private investments. We have universities as a government universities, we have universities as private universities. To conclude all those, what did we learn? We looked at quantitative and qualitative dimensions of a human resource. We also look at the human resource planning at the micro level of the hotel or maybe less than hotel, and the macro level towards the national and the policy. With this, I hope you enjoyed your session. Have a good day. Thank you.